You'll have 8 vintages during the masterclass and another 4 wines during the dinner. You have, so I think you'll have a good vision of what we are doing at Obéi. And we decided to start the tasting here with the oldest vintages. So we will start with 2002 and 2003.
I joined the team in 2002, so that was my first vintage. And Haut-Truy is a very exotic wine for Bordeaux. Maybe you heard about the canicule, the very hot weather we had in Haut-Truy. So they are both very opposite climate styles. That's why we like to show this pair.
When Gabriel arrived, Denis Dubourdieu was with us, and he said, let's check again completely the pruning. Denis Dubourdieu sent us some Italian specialists for the pruning. So of course in Bordeaux we look at them like, what? Italy is going to teach us how to prune. And in fact it was a huge improvement. The guys simply arrived and they cut into 2 a vine, and they showed us that everything we do in Bordeaux is wrong. So we were ready to listen.
The key fact of this pruning method is that they try to focus on the flow of the sap inside the plant, and they explain us that each time you do a cut, even if you cut with a small drying piece of Chicot, a dry wood, the cut will dry inside the plant and disturb the flow of the sap. On this trunk, you have a lot of dry wood, and that's very good for the left arm of the wood, and the sap can flow very well there. And here, because of the opposite cuts over and under the arm of the wood, it made mushrooms, the SK mushrooms, coming to help the plant to die quicker. And even on a very, very young plant like this one, we broke it. That's the arm of the plant. It was 10 years old. And the mistake of pruning up and down and up and down, that the flow of the sap can't go this way.
No, but it's very important because the vine is our patrimoine. It's the most important thing we have. Every time you lose a vine, you lose 10 years. So it's very important. And also by the fact that we can't use certain products against certain disease, we have more and more wood disease. So we have to fight this wood disease in a very natural way, trying not to damage at all our vines. So it seems a little change, but in fact it's a huge change. If you have good vines, of course you have good grapes, and of course you make a better wine. So that's the fundamental thing of a great wine.
Who found the Italian consultants?
Denis Dubourdieu.
He knew about their work.
He knew about them, and he said, he asked us if we want to test or try them. So because, you know, it's not everybody who wants to go in that direction. And we said, okay, let's see. And we were absolutely fascinated by their way of looking at things and the way their approach with the team and everything. And we are working with them since how many years?
7 years from now.
7 years. Yes.
The Italians from a certain vineyard in Italy, and do many vineyards in Italy use this newer technique?
Yes, they are from Piedmont, and they also work a lot in Italy.
From Friuli. They are from next to Venezia, in Friuli. Okay. And but they teach for pruning the vines in Burgundy, in Champagne, in South America, maybe in California. You can do a Guyot or a Cordon or Gobelet. The philosophy of the respect of the flow of the sap is evident when you understand it.
Gabriel said it's a very educational pair, 2002 being a very late vintage, 2003 being a very early vintage. You can recognize them blind because of thanks to their acidity level. 2002 having a higher acidity level, 2003 a lower acidity level. So this pair is interesting for you to compare, being very opposite.
Both sides, you could have expected something different. For a late cold vintage like Haut-Truy, you can expect some greenness. For a very warm or excessive vintage like Haut-Truy, you can expect some jammy wine. And it's not, none of them are like that. Both are very fruity and very balanced. And I think it's one of the secrets of the terroir of Obéi. We could expect to pick ripe grapes until mid-October. That happened in Haut-Truy. And we had the freshness and the balance in Haut-Truy without suffering from the drought stress, so the hydric stress. So it's the magic terroir of Obéi that can permit to have this different wines, different styles in terms of acidity and balance, but both have the elegance and the fruitiness that you can usually find in the wines. Another tool that we can use since 10 years now, we do that twice a year, is flying with a plane and taking a picture. It's a NDVI picture. That means it's taking a normal color picture and infrared picture, crossing the two data. When it's colored in blue like that, it's a very efficient photosynthesis, very dark green for the vines. And when it's clear or like that, it's very young vines or very poor vines. So by understanding the power or the vigor of the vines, we have an idea of what can be under there. And the next step is to go with this kind of machine. We send an electric signal in the soil. It's going to see if there is humidity, if it's wet or not. When it's sandy or it's clay, it has a different result. So the electric signal is going down, 2 meters deep, going to be got by this machine. A computer gets the data, and this is the picture of where is the water and where it is not. So all the old vines have more, the blue is the water inside the soil, and as I told you, we have more clay in this area, and you see we have more water in this area because the clay is keeping it, and it's more sandy or more dry in this area. And these parcels are very sensitive to the hydric stress, and we can see it very well. That's where we've planted the Petit Verdot recently, because it's a warm and dry place. So most of the vineyard of Aubailly is gravels, sand and gravels, and some of the places have more clay than the others. And the best historical places, all this side of the chateau is very rich in clay. The expert who did this map said that the amount of clay that they have in the gravels in Petrus is the same amount as we have here. So it's a very exceptional terroir. On all the Graves and Pessac-Lognan area, everybody has Graves, but the exception for Aubailly is to have this big amount of clay inside the gravels. It's 20% of clay, and it's a lot. That's why it never suffers from the dryness. It's eliminating the rain when it's excessive. If it should be very sandy, the rain could go deep very quickly to the roots.
That's why 2002 and 2003, which were not part of the exceptional vintage, Aubailly is known to perform a bit better than others in non-exceptional vintage, just because we have this incredible terroir, which allow us a certain consistency, whatever the vintage is. So now we move to another pair, 5 and 6, which is, you know, some people would consider that 6 might be a better vintage than 5. 5 is still a baby vintage, but it was an exceptional year with a certain specificity which is that we had very warm days in the summer and very cool nights. And that makes a very aromatic wine. And 6, of course, is a shadowed vintage coming just after 5. So everybody's watching on the 5 and nobody wants to hear about the 6. But we thought it's interesting for you to compare them next to each other, just because one got the light, the other didn't. So now 2009 and 2010. So you all know the story of those two vintages that you collect in America with great pleasure. 2009 was pure pleasure. And we were impressed in September to see lots of people coming to Bordeaux, looking at the birth of this vintage with lots of excitement, and etc. And then a year later, we were in the vineyard together with Gabriel, watching at numbers, the analysis numbers, and we were thinking, God, this is incredible. It's even bigger than last year. So we were thinking, God, nobody will believe us. And because it's a 9 plus the 10, I call it a gentle monster, but it's really a big one. But except there was a difference that nobody came to Bordeaux. I think everybody was too scared that the price would go even higher. So it was very quiet. And we were in the vineyard looking at the birth of this incredible vintage. And we thought, that's brilliant to have two vintages in a row like that everybody will compare. So 9 is the characteristic of 9 is the creaminess. It's pure pleasure. What you see is what you get. It's just there. From the beginning, it has been pure pleasure. 10 has much more structure, much more from everything. So that's a vintage built for a century, and we'll have to wait and wait and wait for it. If you don't have any question on the 9 and 10, we can move to the last pair, which is 15, another star for Aubailly, and 17, barrel sample. that Gabriel prepared for you.
Was there, do you recall the reason why there was no Cab Franc in the 06?
Why no Cab Franc? Actually, the terroir of Aubailly, well, first of all, you do have a little Cab Franc, the one from the old vines. So we didn't mention it, but the other Cab Franc, Aubailly's terroir is not fantastic for the Cab Franc. In fact, the Cab Francs of Aubailly were given by the father of Jean Delmas to my great-grandfather. And every year we are like, do we put the Cab Franc in the Grand Vin or not? Every year is a discussion. You know, it brings some finesse, some elegance, but it's not easy to succeed Cab Franc at Aubailly every vintage. So, in fact, Jean Delmas joined us in 2004 to give us some advice. And after a few years, we said, watching together the evolution of the Cab Franc, he gave his blessing to get rid of the Cab Franc. So we still have a bit of Cab Franc, but we planted some Petit Verdot and some Cabernet Sauvignon instead of the Cab Franc, which were never fascinating at Aubailly. Very elegant, very fine, but nothing exceptional. So that's why you didn't have any Cab Franc. You didn't have Cab Franc in every vintage at Aubailly.
The Cabernet Franc, they don't show the same taste on the right bank and on the left bank. Next to Saint-Émilion and Pomerol, the Cabernet Franc have a deep color and a very intense violet aroma, and it's very interesting. And most of the left bank chateaux from the Médoc, Pauillac, Saint-Estèphe, and even in Margaux or Pessac-Léognan, we are complaining about the lack of density of the Cabernet Franc. They are very elegant, they are very raffinés, but in the great vintages it can help for the finesse, and in the off vintages it's a little bit liquid and it doesn't help. So that's why we don't hesitate to put Cabernet Franc on the 9 or on the 10 because they can get them without being diluted. And in the 6, they were just balanced, and we thought that the Cabernet Franc didn't help for the blend, and we prefer to have an easy second wine with the base with the Cabernet Franc and to disrupt them there. So you don't find too much Cabernet Franc on the 14, on the 13, on the 6, just for this reason.
In 2017, the color is beautifully scarlet. When you taste the 2017, how does one assess how it will be like and what it will be like in 10 years? This tastes surprisingly good for something so recent, but what do you look for to assess its longer-term success?
It has to be rich, structured, balanced. If the wine has a kind of unripe greenness, it won't ripe in the barrels or in the bottle. It will stay like that. So it has to be ripe. If it's jammy or overripe, it will be over-aged too quicker. So in terms of balance, it's this kind of crispy fruitiness, tannic rich structure. At the time we taste them, or most of the professionals are coming in April to taste the en primeur wine. They just remember what they tasted the previous years and how it has to be. And it's much more by comparison and by knowing what we tasted before that we can say that it will age well or not. And if it's good level in terms of balance, alcohol, bitterness from the tannins, freshness from the acidity, purity of the aroma, all these components are making a great wine or not.
So, in that vein, is there a memory of a past vintage that 2017 reminds you of?
No, because 17 is a multiple vintage. The first thing is that when we got the frost, we were thinking, 91. And it's not the frost of 91, it's a different frost. So what we lost was completely lost. We didn't have the second debudding, and in 91 we declassified everything. So what we have to consider with the 17 is that what was not frozen was everything which was on the hillock, and that's the historical plot of Aubailly. So this vintage is even more interesting for you, just because it comes from the non-frozen plot on the bottom part, but on the historical plot. So this is the first thing. The second thing is that when you think of 17, extreme vintage with very cold winter, then super warm spring in March, April. We were having dinner outside in March, and I was concerned because I was thinking, God, this is not right. And 27, 28, 29 of April, we got the frost. And then we got a drought except the 3 last days of June, which was a deluge, which saved the vintage just because we had enough water in the soil, and then nothing during the next 2 months. And then a wonderful after season. So 17 is really incredible. It's an early vintage, super warm, super dry, with frost in between. We never had that.
I think it could have made a 61 again, except the only difference was that we had some rain at the beginning of September that didn't concentrate as much as the 61. But in 61, the frost happened end of May, 28th of May, at the flowering moment, and it just broke some of the flowers and preserved the top of the historical places. And when Véronique is saying that we had frost in 2017, we lost 10 hectares completely frozen, and we made an exceptional wine, that's what you have in your glass, on the 20 other hectares. And this natural selection, selecting only the non-sensitive vines to the frost, or the warmer places of the vineyard, did the selection. And this selection already happened in 61 before.
So we are not saying 17 is 61, and 17 will have.
No, but the second wine in 17, even the second wine is made in the historical best places of the vineyard, because the frozen area didn't make wine, and they are only the third wine. They are not interesting.
It's not 61 because 61 was not that warm. So it's a vintage on its own. But the big problem 17 will have is that it comes after 15 and 16. And you have 15 in your glass, and 15 is a bomb. It's you know, a piece of charm, of elegance. Aubailly is about silkiness, about very elegant tannins, and you have exactly what we want to do every single vintage, you know. It's just a daily dedication to every single detail in the field and in the cellar. That's really something we are, and I think that's what makes us come here every day with an immense pleasure, and we feel very privileged to have this property to run, just because this is an incredible terroir. We have a great team, and we just want to make the best of it every single year in order to please you. That's all.
I don't know how we can thank you, but from the bottom of our hearts, really, I'd like to say this has been a fabulous, fabulous.